Put a 1 in the chat if you can hear me. Hello, everybody. I wonder does anybody know how to put the chat, you know how it's like invisible in the corner? It's like you can see it. Hello, Pokey Dots. Oh, there we go. Oh, no, I can't do that. Hi, Donna. Offset Guitar Tech. Hello. There's a fly in here. Hello, Miss Bianca. Thank you for being here. We're not going to be super duper long today. We're not going to do a 2-hour because it's already 7 o'clock, but we'll talk about some things. It'll be great. Welcome to Bronx Tales Live. How was everybody's day? Did you guys have a good day? Hi, Leah. Hello, hello, hello. Okay. So I'm going to get started anyways, even though there's not a whole lot of people here, but we're going to just get started anyways. So I had somebody ask to do a replay kind of WSU Kim's interview and kind of compare and contrast. I don't know if anybody's interested in doing that. Also, let me pull this up. This one. All right. Do you guys see? You probably have seen it on another channel. I think this was actually put out yesterday, but I do want to show you guys that they sealed Dylan's phone records because she said it was an invasion of her privacy. Now that we're not having a trial, she doesn't want people to see anything that went on with her phone. So this was sealed, ordered by the judge as to be sealed yesterday. So just letting you guys know, we probably won't be seeing anything from Dylan's phone regardless. I was super interested in that too. Yeah, totally bullshit. I was so interested in that. I mean, obviously her using it as I don't want people invading my privacy is a great tactic on her end, but it is total bullshit. I think that would have given us so many answers. Because hi Chris, welcome. I so want to know who that contact was and what picture she was editing, and I wanted to see it all. I feel like her phone records is probably what a lot of people were really waiting on to see. I think that would have told us a lot. This would have given us a lot of answers. We had questions too, and no, we won't see it. Okay. Oh, I also wanted to say for anybody that follows Birdie and his thing on this being a possible study because, you know, FBI was in the area at the time. WSU had gotten funding from the state for like a criminal psychological study, and that was actually going on at the time of this. And he's tried to connect that this could possibly be connected to that or part of it, or it is the study, which I find very interesting. So he plugs stuff into ChatGPT, and the outcomes are insane. If you haven't checked any of that stuff out, definitely go watch it. But you know how they said, hello, stop that right now. You know how they said that Brian took a drive south of Moscow, which would be in the Lewiston area. You know what else is in the Lewiston area? Idaho State Police Headquarters, which I find very interesting. Very, very interesting. Yes, Chris Britty's live was insane. That one was crazy. And he's kind of kept going on it for a little bit. And I'm very interested in that. Like, I have a love-hate relationship with conspiracy theories. Not saying this is actually a conspiracy, but I have a love-hate relationship with. I love digging into them, but I hate feeling like I'm jumping on board of a brand new one, you know? Like, but yeah, his live for that is insane. Let's take a look at, we can stop it if we want to, but I do want to take a look at the WSU Kim, an old interview that she did. Let's see. How do I delete this one? I want to take a look at an old interview that she did. Whoops, that is not what I meant to do. And like compare and contrast what she said, because, you know, people I feel were 50-50 on if she was actually had good information or not, or if it was the truth. And now I kind of want to see if anything connects. There we go. We don't have to play the whole thing if you guys don't want to either, but yes, the book did arrive. I don't know if you can see it, but it's right here. I know some people's came late. Mine was supposed to arrive yesterday, and it actually ended up just coming today.
And that's important. And if I came out, they said that several.
I'd stopped it where he asked her to kind of start going into the information that she has. Can you guys let me know if you can hear it or not?
Other people didn't have to show their face. So I said, well, I'll take the hit.
Yeah, so well, let's start off in the beginning. When did you get contacted? How long ago was this that they first came up to you, and how was it proposed to you, this docuseries?
It was Olivia. Olivia came up to me and she said, would you do something for me? And I said, anything. And she said, would you go on Paramount Plus and do a docuseries? And I said, oh, ouch. Let me talk to my husband. So I talked to my husband and he's like, no, I think no. And I said, but it's Olivia. And so we discussed it and he said, okay. So then I agreed to do it, but I vacillated. I'm not going to lie. Up until the moment I did it, I wasn't sure I was going to do it. Neither were they. And I didn't get paid for it. I actually spoke to an attorney about it.
Sorry, I know it's drunk dodo.
They did pay for they didn't want me to drive over. They wanted me to fly over, which probably was smarter. They paid for my accommodations, where I was staying, and they provided armed guards. And I was with armed guards, which was and transported back and forth. So, but my husband came and picked me up from there. I did not fly home. My husband, as soon as he got off work, came and got me. Because, you know, it's actually not all of this is safe. There's a lot of danger in this because people, I don't know. I don't know if we want to go there yet.
So, roughly, like, what month was this again?
It would have been, well, it was before Memorial Day. It was after the kids graduated, so it would have been early May, I think.
So they came out to you, they told you about this, docuseries.
They approached me probably in March or February.
In March?
Or February. Right. And then we shot sometime in May. It was the week before Father's Day when, so that would have been June.
Where'd they fly you out to?
The week before Father's Day. Moscow. I was in Moscow.
Oh, they flew you out there to Moscow.
They flew me I flew to Spokane and then met Olivia. And Olivia and I drove to, she dropped me in Pullman, where I stayed in Pullman alone. And she and her mother went to somewhere in Moscow. And then the guards or the drivers, whatever, picked me up in Pullman and took me to Moscow for the shooting. They put my picture up there with this other woman and claimed she was I and sent people to her house.
And did you know who this person was?
I have no idea who she was.
I don't want to be in it. I don't want my name coming out in it. I don't want anything to do with anything from any other mainstream media or large network. After the last two times, you know, where they manipulated what myself or Big Blue had said, and you know, completely threw us under the bus for something that we didn't need to be first when it came to you know, coming out with content. And sometimes when doing so, it's not as accurate as if somebody were to sit down and read it through a couple of times and then put it out there. But yeah, I mean, to me, it just kind of seemed like they were.
I want to get to the question.
Right. And I think that, so I kind of think that there's something in the autopsies that we don't know. That are
I don't
maybe
think so.
Gonna show. You don't think that they're gonna show that he's the one who did it, though?
The autopsies won't show that it was Kohberger. You know, no. She says that they're looking for X-rays, and the other thing that
what's the X-ray?
I did think it was interesting that Catherine Mabbitt, the coroner and the everything else for that town, it seems like, said that their toxicology wasn't relevant. Well, we know they were drinking. It just makes me wonder, did she kind of want to save that information to kind of save face on their reputations? I found that interesting. That also with the coroner, I don't know if I've said this before yet or not, but did you guys know that in her reporting, she had the cause and manner of death switched? She said she's been doing it for 16 years, and she had the cause listed as the manner and the manner listed as the cause. It's like documents in this case, it's okay for them to just be wrong, right? Like, how ridiculous. And it's things like that that make me think that some of this stuff isn't even legit. Like, it's not even real.
The tip of the knife, maybe.
Maybe, or maybe the direction that the knife was traveling. You know, if they can determine if this person was right-handed or left-handed, you know, those type of things.
You know what? And I don't know if he did it. I don't. I just know that it's a nightmare. And if he did do it, and he gets off because he's got a really good attorney, because I do think his attorney is good, and I think there's been a lot of things that have been not done properly, in my opinion. Just my opinion. What if he gets off and he did do it? That's horrifying.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, Ann Taylor talked about 400 witnesses, which is crazy.
Right.
You know, talked about a lot of other evidence. All we know is a little bit of the case, and the little bit that we know is only up until the point where he was arrested. You know, if I had a problem for you to solve, and I only gave you 3 components of a 10-component problem, would it add up?
No.
Would it make sense? Would you kind of need the rest of it? Yeah. So, you know, that's kind of where I am at on this. When people say, you know, this doesn't make sense, it don't add up. I'm like, it's not supposed to add up right now. You know.
For people who are just coming in, I just wanted to let you know that they did seal Dylan's phone records, so we probably won't see those, just in case anybody missed that.
We haven't seen everything, you know. Right now, I understand, you know, Ann Taylor questioning the validity of the cell phone pings in the area, but who cares about that? He had his phone on. There's warrants for his GPS.
Who cares about that? Is he for real? It matters. The phone pings matter because it could show, and it does show, that he wasn't anywhere near the house. He was well over a football field lengths away the entire time. He never got closer than that. That absolutely matters. What a ding dong.
That's what they're going to use, which is why she also said during today's trial is that the stuff that they're looking for is probably not even going to be used in court, but they're looking for a loophole.
Right, which is her job, right? That's what her job is, to get her client off. And do I think he has, so they did ask me on Paramount, they said, what do you think? What do you think? Is the, they said, I literally have no idea. I have no idea who's guilty. I feel very comfortable that he wasn't alone, only from the things that I've heard, but that doesn't mean I'm right. And I really want to be wrong. I want everybody to know, I've said this from day one. I want to be wrong. I want them to have the guy. I want the school to be safe. I want no students involved. I want nobody involved. I want to be wrong about that, but I don't know if I am or not. And it's going to be years before any of us know. That is terrifying.
Yeah.
This whole thing has been
left. Okay. And so now he's lying. So what he wants to do is he wants to make sure that if it does say he went right, that he can find another intersection to say that he turned away from the house. And so the state brought up that the reason why they don't give all the evidence like that, and that why they ask and have that alibi hard on 10 days, is because of the fact that they fabricated alibi can be created so easily. It's very easy to create one.
Yeah, I don't really know how long I can play it to where it's okay and I don't have to stop it, but I don't know. I'm okay with it right now. It's okay.
Alex Murdaugh is a pretty good example of it. You know, he said that he went down there with the dogs until there was some evidence that he was down there with the dog. You know what I mean?
Right.
And
this is Snapchat, right?
And then all of a sudden he had this story that went with what the evidence had to make it somewhat believable, but they already saw past it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. And I actually respect what you say, because I do think it comes from a place of knowledge. But I have this question the next question is, so I was super sad on the anniversary day. Obviously, we all were. It was a sad day. It's a sad day. Kids died, right? It's a sad day. And one of my children said, it couldn't have happened to us. It couldn't have happened to us. And I said, what does that mean? It just means it couldn't have happened. So what do we not know that will prevent this from happening again? That's my thing.
Well,
what do we not know? I feel like we don't know something.
What if you can create your own website by saying,
what is she talking about? We don't know anything.
This is what I want. With Wix, you can.
I mean, you're going to cross into some moral and I said her daughter claims about more than what I know, and she could say that she thinks it's this, and this, and I can still go under that, that rabbit hole and start going into it and having that conversation. Next thing you know, people are joining the live at the wrong time and not really realizing that it was all speculation and rumor.
Alex
and just people just talking,
yeah, that's a crazy
and then turn that into fact.
Now, exactly, Daniel. That is actually in hindsight. If I could go back, I would have my purpose in calling other creators when they said my name or said something about me was to correct something they had said about me that was not correct, or something they quoted. I said
her name, and there's like a strong Wisconsin accent in it, and I'm like, I don't think that's her.
Go farther in.
What case brought you guys
it's
to
crazy. And for those that are asking about who Luke Carter is, again,
for each of you guys?
we talked about it in the beginning of the show. One of her buddies pranked her on this, and she don't know how to take it off. They named her somebody named randomly Luke Carter. If you guys go out there, try to find a Luke Carter, please don't bother them. They have no idea what's going on. You know what I mean?
No clue. My YouTube site, and I have followers. I'm like, guys, I'm really letting you down because I'm not putting any content on here. Why are you following me? But you can find me under Wazoo Mom Kim, and that is me. I promise.
There you go. Me. I want to say thank you to the 49er girl for being a member for 18 or 20.
Wow.
Yeah, and so with power of God and prayer, we think that she can be another.
I'm going to stop this. It's not the interview I thought it was, but that's okay. Kylie Rodney. Yep. Summer Wells. The West Boys. That one was so sad. The thing with that one is it was so obvious from the beginning that they weren't telling the truth, and that, people put that one together so fast, but it's so sad. So I heard recently, and this might be old information, it might be new, I'm not sure, but I heard recently that when they demolished the house, they used chemicals to actually completely deteriorate everything of any remnants of the house. I'm just curious if anybody knows if that's true or not, because I just heard that. I didn't actually know that before. And it's crappy if they did, but I do understand why they would, so nobody can do anything with it. But I mean, it's crappy from the beginning that they even demolished it. And the reason they demolished it is so nobody could go inside and find the real evidence and the real stuff that happened, and Brian Kohlberger wouldn't be accused anymore. They didn't want that to happen. Yeah, that's super creepy. The amount of effort they went into to cover things up and hide things and make things look a way that it's not, to make it look like it's this person and this person wasn't a suspect but totally should have been from day one. The amount of time and effort they put into that kind of stuff, I wish they would have put into actually investigating this case. You heard they buried it? Interesting. Yeah, I just heard that recently, that they actually used chemicals to get rid of everything. So there wasn't a speck of that house left. So nobody could take anything. I was thinking earlier that I feel like what is going to eventually come of this case is they're going to either adjust laws that they already have, or they're going to create new ones, and it's going to be because of this case, which I think is super sus. Law enforcement never looked into that beatdown of Ethan, head injuries. Yeah, I definitely think that there's way more than just one, obviously, than just one weapon used. We know that because the coroner said that the injuries weren't, it was different weapon pretty much. And I have a hard time believing that even somebody as drunk as they say Ethan was, you're still going to hear that. I mean, Xana's fingers were almost not attached anymore. You can't tell me that there wasn't any sort of noise or fight or anything that he didn't wake up. And I feel like that's probably the reason that happened to his legs, because I think they needed to make it so he couldn't get up and fight back. He couldn't do anything. What doesn't mean if marshals are there, who calls them in? Does the FBI call them in for the marshals to come in? I'm actually not sure what it would mean if the marshals are there, but what I think it has something to do with is, FBI, DEA would call them in. I think having the marshals there would show that it's more of like an operation. Please tell me if I'm wrong. That's what I think of it. Yeah, were they part of the drug task force? So yeah, all those people were there already, because in the very beginning of this case, drug task force and FBI and all in marshals and everything were there looking into this big drug ring that was there, and the Aryan Knights or Aryan Brotherhood or whatever. They were already all there, which I thought was convenient for this case to happen. I'm at the point where I'm very torn if this is actually real. And I don't mean real in the sense that nobody passed away. I'm saying real in the sense that it wasn't set up like the study thing that Birdie talks about. In my opinion, yeah. So yeah, I'm really curious what drugs, Jesus, what new laws are gonna come of this just because of this case. Also, I want to know, do you guys think they're going to do anything with the plot of land that 1122 King Road House was on? Do you think they're going to build like a new apartment building, or do you think they could maybe even, I don't know, put something there that would make money, some sort of small business or something? I don't mean like a gas station or a big business or anything like that. It's a small little plot of land, but I'm curious what's going to be done with it, because what I always found strange was from the view of the university, the president of the university, the view from his house is 1122 King Road House. When he looks directly out of his front window, it's straight to the view of that plot of land. Yeah, doesn't matter. Idaho makes its own rules, apparently. They sure do. They sure do. In my opinion, Brent knew or saw something. He could be alive too. Hi, Crystal Amber. I feel like because they have said in interviews that Kopaka's case is not relevant to this case, they have no correlation, and because they said that, it makes me think it does, because they want us to think it has nothing to do with it. Well, then why was Brent Payne there? Why is Brent Payne at everything? Everything we talk about is alleged. Disclaimer. Yeah, it does seem like Idaho makes their own rules. I'm just curious if what they're going to end up doing with that plot of land, if it's going to be any sort of little moneymaker or anything. Pullman and Moscow work together. Yeah, I do know they often work together. It has just always seemed strange to me that no matter what time of day it is, Brent Payne is on every call. It could be in the middle of the night, it could be in the morning or the afternoon. It didn't matter. He was there for everything. I just found it strange. I'm like, does this guy ever not work or have a day off, or low income housing apartments are going to go in there? Yep, that would make money. That's interesting. I noticed that they have been claiming that Brian Koberger's apartment had, nothing in it. It looked vacant. It looked like nobody lived there. Well, we know he had a TV in there. He had a fire stick. He had a computer. He had a vacuum. They took knives from his house, which I don't understand, because if they had the sheath and they think the weapon is a K-bar from the sheath, basically, and I suppose the injuries they think could be made from the K-bar, or some of them, why are you going to Brian Koberger's house to take his steak knives? If you already knew what the weapon is, why are you taking his steak knives or butter knives or whatever kind of knives you took from Koberger's house? So we know he had eating utensils and silverware. We know he had some clothes. Why are they acting like, they keep saying that his house looked like nobody lived there, and then they were trying to take that and spin it like he wasn't ever coming back. His house, there was nothing in it. It looked like he was never coming back. He knew he's running from the crime. I mean, I just named a bunch of stuff that would help fill up a house. I mean, I'm sure it's a small apartment. What more do you need? I'm sure he had a bed there. That's really all you need for an apartment for somebody who is working and going to school. It's so odd. It bothers me the way they spin things. It bothers me how mainstream media talks about his appearance and his mannerisms, the way he carries himself. They're literally talking crap about autism, a person with autism. I mean, what would happen? What would they do if in 6 months it came out that Brian Koberger is actually not the person who did it? Somebody came forward and said, I can't let this person go down for this. I did it, whatever. Let's pretend like that happens. What are they going to do then? They've sat here and talked crap about somebody with autism this entire time, making it seem like he's that way because he's a creepy murderer. He has autism, and they're using that against him. Yeah, the house being demoed was a huge red flag. Hi, Cole. Bye, Amy. Now, I always thought that them saying the wounds were different between Kaylee and Maddie is what I thought they were talking about. And I thought they were saying that because Kaylee was in a fight with the person or one of the people. And I thought that's what it was. But I think a lot of people think that the wounds were actually different. And now I'm leaning toward that's what it was. Yeah. Just because he's not a popular person or, all in the in crowd. It's fascinating to me how mean his sisters are to him, especially since one of them is a mental health professional. You would think she would be able to recognize the tells and get him help. I agree. I just don't know how much they're claiming about his sisters is true. We hear that the sisters called the FBI or called the police on him, and I don't know if I take what they say as truth. We've been lied to so much about so many different things in this case. It's hard for me to believe when they say something, when they tell us something like that. I feel sorry for Brian in the fact that they're using the fact he has autism against him. That's not his fault. He can't help that he stares or the way he sits or walks or moves or speaks. It's his brain. He has autism. I don't like that. The family has never talked. No, they haven't. And I'm curious if somebody is going to come out and talk, like his dad or even just a sister. I've heard that his sister is going to do an interview. I don't know how true that is, though. There's a lot of stuff going around right now. And just so you guys are aware, on the 23rd, I did take time off work. So if we are able to stream the live sentencing, I will be doing it live on here, just so you guys know. Do you think the plea deal should have been allowed for an autistic person? I don't. I think that his autism is more severe than what they're letting on to. I think that they think it's like this, surface, like, oh, he has tics or whatever. I think it's more severe than that. So I don't know if they could have even legally deleted him. And it's wild that they made this whole new part of the jail or courthouse or wherever they were going to do it just for this case, just for the firing squad. How much money did that cost? Everybody on the prosecution state court side got everything they needed and wanted out of this. And this was Bill Thompson's last case that he is ever going to try. He has never lost a case. I think that he offered the plea because the prosecution went to the defense and offered the plea. The defense did not ask for it. He went to the defense and offered the plea because he could not take a loss as his last case, and he couldn't break his streak of never losing a case. That's what I think it was. I think it was like more personal on a selfish level for him. It was like a greed. It was greedy for him. Yes. True Crime Questions with me says he seems like he has learned to mask his ASD. I wholeheartedly agree with that. I know that, like, neighbors have said he stays up all night running his garbage disposal or vacuum and cleaning. Why is the prosecution or state or any guilter using it against him that his car is clean or his house is clean, making it seem like he cleaned it only because he committed the murders and was trying to clean up any evidence? No, he's always been like that. So him wearing gloves and separating trash, I don't think is out of the ordinary for him. I don't think he was doing that for any reason, not to hide his DNA or anything. I think he was doing that because that is what he does. I think his ASD is way more severe than they lead on to. And I don't know how half of these people can't see that when they have been in this field, whether it be, Ashley, Harsh calls her Ashley Buttfield, I think. People like that have been in this field for so long, doing this so long. How can they not see that? It's like they are following this narrative that they have to follow. He was like a well-trained dog when he went guilty. Didn't he kind of seem like almost scared? He's so smart. I feel like I can't say that he didn't know what was going on. He's so book smart, but I don't know how common sense smart he is. I don't know if he knew the full extent of what is going on. But that brings me to something. Now, I know it says no appeals, but that doesn't necessarily mean completely zero appeals. There could be a technicality. There could be something with his ASD that he might be able to come up with an appeal. My question is to myself, they started with the death penalty. Now, when you're fighting a case from prison, however many years it takes, what they would have done if he won any appeal would be, okay, we'll commute it to life in prison. Well, now he's not as high as the death penalty. He's not in that super high category of the worst punishment. He's lower than that. He's life without parole. Now, I'm wondering if when he does fight it, and let's say he has an appeal and he wins an appeal and they lessen his sentence for some reason, instead of going from the death penalty to life without parole, now he's going from life without parole to something lower than that. I'm wondering if that is part of the strategy, that he didn't think he was going to win, which I don't know how he didn't think he was going to win. I think it would have been a very, very fair shot of him to not be found guilty. But it makes me question, would he go from, if he ever wins an appeal, would he go from life without parole to a lesser sentence than that? And that's part of their strategy at this point. I'm sure something severe happened that made him take a plea deal. It's not that all of a sudden he decided that he's done fighting for his life and or freedom. I agree with that, Pumpkin. I do. I think something happened. I think there was a threat or even something bigger than that we're not even thinking about for him to give up. I think something was going on. I don't even know if right in that moment there was a threat, but I do think there's something much bigger going on that him or his family is scared of. So when the prosecution came to them with the plea, he took it. I think something happened. Yeah. I think that a lot of people feel that way. So it can't be that we're just crazy and making stuff up. There's a lot of people saying that, and it makes sense. Maybe his family or something. It could be. And it might be something where not on paper, but off of paper, off the record, they said, if you take this plea, we'll move you closer to your family too. So now he's going to be fighting for a sentence that's less than life without parole, but now he can do it closer to his family and have visitations and have stuff to look forward to. I think that could be part of it too. Where big money is involved, lots of ugly things can happen, and it happened. We have watched it happen with this case. I do think that there's a level of money and greed and all sorts of stuff attached to this case. I'm curious for each of you guys, what was the point that you heard of in this case to make you to follow it and be interested in it and keep following it to get to where we are today? I wish someone would do a counter documentary. Yeah, from a pro burger's point of view. I think it would open a lot of people's eyes. I had a friend call me the other day, and I was just surface level talking to her about this case, and she didn't really know much about it, really pretty much just the name and that the college kids had been unalived, and she thought she was like, dang well he did it. And I'm like, what? And I said like 4 things on how it's very possible he didn't because the evidence showed XYZ, and she was like, oh, I didn't know that. Right, because you watch 2020 or, mainstream media. It's one of those cases where you do have to dig into it and follow it and go deeper than what they're just telling you on mainstream media to really get even be able to have a well-rounded opinion on it. I thought he was guilty at first, then I started watching Lana and Jules. It opened my eyes. Well, I'm glad you did, because then you wouldn't be here. Just the fact 4 demised and 2 left alive, I think that's a big part of it. I think a lot of people wanted to know and thought that we would find out what the roommates had to say and what happened there. I think for a lot of people too, it was the 8 hours in between. People were like, what? That's so unbelievable. Yep. The roommates and the call. None of their DNA being found on him and his home. So I said, oh, it wasn't him. I had heard of the case but knew nothing about it, but I'm in the UK. Oh, I didn't know you were in the UK. I see a harsh reality video one day. I couldn't believe what I was seeing and hearing. Yeah, that's kind of neat. Even somebody just doing a video on a different point of view and you just happen to tune in and now you dig deeper. Frozen shock face. I think everybody in this community needs to make a frozen shock face shirt. Yes, I'm in England. That's so cool. I found it interesting that everybody was saying all the girls went up into Maddie's room or Kaylee's room and were sitting on the bed chit-chatting about going out because Dylan said that. And then come to find out, no, Dylan was in her room. Maddie and Kaylee were sitting on the couch talking. And because the wall that the couch sits on shares a wall with Dylan's room, and she was like eavesdropping almost. They say she could hear it. She was in and out of sleep. No, honey bear, you were eavesdropping. You were listening to what they were saying. I find it a little bit creepy. Does anybody even know where Dylan is at now? I know that Bethany's in Las Vegas. I heard Dylan was in Boise. Anybody that's coming in now, just so you know, they did seal Dylan's phone records, so we will probably never, ever, ever know what those entail. Australia? I didn't know you were in Australia, Bianca. That's so cool. I love Australian accents. In the book, in the book, it says that Chief Fry found the knife sheath and not Brent Payne. just so you guys are aware. I am going to read the book. I don't know if you guys want me to read the book on here, if you want me to just film a video and post, a couple of chapters each night. I don't know how you guys want to do it. It's totally up to you guys. I don't care either way. Oh, okay. Nevada. Mm-hmm. Where was Dylan that night prior to the crime happening? I don't know. I don't know where she was. I feel like she wasn't there. I'm just so stuck on the back door and the front door being open. It was 28 degrees. It would have been so cold. I just don't see how they were actually in there. And my mom came up with a good point. Actually, one day she said, what if one of the perpetrators went downstairs to see if somebody else was down there, because somebody heard Dylan tell them to shut up or be quiet, yelling up the stairs, and then heard the door slam when she opened it for the third time. When she shut it, she didn't just shut it, she slammed it. So I'm wondering if one of the perps actually went down the stairs to see if somebody was there, another victim for them to grab, and nobody was there. And that's why the roommates are alive and saying, I don't know what feels like a dream. I can't remember. Well, because you weren't there. I mean, that's plausible. She says, I was sleuthing a long time ago, and I think I connected Bethany and Brian's families, but I have to go through my screenshots. You know what's interesting about that is, and I'm sure most of you have seen this or know this, when you look up Brian Koberger's house, one of the players in this case, I think it's Jack Showalter, his family, it shows used to live at the same address as Brian Koberger's parents. If that's not odd. DM and BF didn't hear blood-curdling screams. Yeah, I can't. Knowing that how Xana's fingers were, that they were nearly off, you can't tell me that she just let that happen. I can see maybe if somebody's running as fast as they can, them not screaming because they're focusing on getting where they're going to. But when she hit that room, I don't see her just not yelling for Ethan. And while she's grabbing onto that weapon to do that to her fingers, that she's just not going to let out any peeps, nothing, just a whimper. But we know that when you are when the red fluid is exiting your body, especially with the wounds they have, every time their heart would beat, it would squirt. It will come out like 4 or 5 feet from each wound, or that's connected to an artery that hits an artery. Every time their heart beats, it's going to like shoot out of their body. It's going to take at least a few minutes for somebody to pass. And I just can't believe that there was no noise from anybody as that's happening. I understand you pass out and then you pass, but especially the fight, it's not an immediate passing away. I mean, it would be a couple seconds, a couple minutes, if not even longer than that. But I would think somebody would yell, scream, something, especially as it's happening. So for Xana to grab onto the weapon, her body isn't hurt yet. It's just her fingers at that point, right? And then he would have to draw back and go after her and do that. You can't tell me in those moments that she didn't yell and scream. Oh, yes, other fluids would be released as well in 8 hours. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, you would lose bowels and urine, and some of them might have had red fluid coming out of their mouths as well. She heard her crying. Ugh, that's so heartbreaking. the whole cleanup is what I don't understand. If the police had to use literally a chemical to find a bloody shoe print right there in the landing of the stairs right outside of Dylan's room, how could they not consider that a cleanup from right then and there? If you have to use a chemical to find it, then somebody wiped it up. That's why you have to use a chemical. It's odd. Does anybody know the details on the shoe print? Does anybody know like what size shoe it was or what part of the shoe it was? No, Polka Dots, I haven't read the book yet. David B's family owns a cleaning business. My thing is you can't clean like behind the walls and under the floorboards, right? A cleaning company can only do so much. You're not going to get under the floorboards and stuff. So when the house was demolished and we didn't see any stains underneath the floorboards, I found that very odd. A size 13 Vans. Size 10. I heard at some point it was size 10 as well, and I know it was a Vans. I just don't know what like part of the shoe. Like it would tell us which direction they were standing or facing, right? Because if it's facing Dylan's door, then it's obviously somebody that was in contact with her or talking to her, or because she says the perp went past her door into the kitchen, out the back. So I'm curious what direction that shoe print is in. I mean, technically, the only way it could be would be facing the back slider. Any other direction than that is suspicious. It can't be going up because there wouldn't have been any red fluid yet to be tracked. So if it's facing Dylan's door or up or any other direction in between other than facing the back slider, we know that it's suspicious. Yeah, I don't remember even where I heard that it was a size 10. I heard that at some point. I don't know where though. I find it interesting that if you guys remember in the very beginning, they claim that when Brian Koberger was first arrested, he said, number one, did they arrest anybody else? Now knowing that he has autism and I don't want to just make an opinion on that because I'm not that knowledgeable in autism. But I know some people with a degree of autism are very matter of fact and literal when they speak. I'm wondering if when he asked, did they arrest anybody else, if he really said that, number one, and number two, if he meant that. Because most of us think if he was there and part of it, there had to be more than one person. And I'm wondering if, number one, if he said that, and number two, if he really did mean it and he was saying it literally and not just being facetious or trying to throw them off. So he also said after that, or they say he said, I'm going to be exonerated. Not acquitted, exonerated. There's a difference. Exonerated is when, after he pleads guilty or is found guilty, then he proves he's not guilty and then you're exonerated. Acquitted would be found not guilty during trial. Well, now we don't have a trial and he's pled guilty, and I'm wondering now if he will be exonerated at some point. Like he totally called it. Susan says, I feel he could have said that because he felt he was getting framed and they were only focusing on him. That's very possible. I think somebody said that his dad I might have been part of the book or something, that his dad was telling people that Brian was framed. And so I'm wondering if Brian said that to his dad, like in a phone call or something. I want these jail phone calls. I'm going to do everything I can to put in to get these jail phone calls. I want to learn his baseline. I want to learn how he speaks and how he communicates with his family, especially his dad. Susan said, I heard his dad said that too. Yeah, that, hey, Rolo. He says it's never going to make sense and people still trying to figure it out because that's the way they are designed to be. The footage evidence that's out there tells a whole different story. Yeah, that we'll never get answers unless Brian himself speaks or somebody later in life says, I can't deal with this on my conscience anymore. I need to get this out, and spills all the beans. I think that's the only way we're going to find answers. But yeah, we'll never find all the answers. And just so you guys know, this book is totally fiction. Like, we all know we weren't there. We know that James Patterson wasn't there. So he says in the beginning, this is a fictional book, but it reads like fact, which is just his opinion. So some of the things in here I already know, not because I read ahead, but because other people have read it already. But I know that some things in this book already don't make sense and the timeline is already off. One thing I know is James Fry, Chief Fry's wife, is a clerk at the courthouse as well. So I suppose if anybody needs any documents redacted, she could do that for her hubby. That's what I fear too, that if Brian Koberger does anything, if he doesn't rescind his plea and go back and say, no, I don't want to do this. If he doesn't do that, it's going to be really hard for him to fight anything because he stood up in court and said, I plead guilty. I did this. He would have had so much better chance just fighting it. Man, I would give anything to see that trial. That's really all I have as far as Alive for today. Sorry, the interview with WSU Kim I thought was a different one, and it was going to be a different one. Before I can read the book if you guys want to stay. Anybody who wants to stay for me to read a couple chapters of the book, we can definitely do that. You just have to let me know. Or I can get off live, make a video of it and post it. It's up to you guys. We can do whatever. I think I said this in my video the other day. I find it really strange that they had a handful's worth of DNA specimens that they got, and they did tested Brian's or built a profile and it became Brian's or whatever. And they didn't really test very many of the other ones. There was like a handful of them. We still don't know what some of them even are. They're still unknown. Male B, D, C. My question is, being that it was a party house, don't you think they would have hundreds of fingerprints and DNA samples to go through? That would be processing a crime scene. Not, let me pick this one thing and test it, and then we're going to clip a fingernail. That'll do. That'll do. Wild. The DNA sample assigned to Brian was partial and ambiguous. And now we find out that his DNA never left that same lab. That the Idaho State Police said, okay, we have a lab, we're using this lab. Now we're going to send it off to another lab for the FBI to use it. And the FBI is going to do their due diligence on this DNA sample and compare it. Now we found out it never left their hands. It never, ever left that same lab, same people. who knows the what's it called? My brain's not working. Where they chain of custody. That's what I want to see on everything. There have been so many cases where they've had to rule out a person who worked in the lab or contamination from another sample. Who knows why would they not send it out to several different labs? Like, I know that takes time and costs a lot of money probably, but it would be a lot better than putting somebody in prison or the death penalty for the rest of their life for somebody who didn't do it. I would think you would need like best out of 3 or something, right? You know, if you have the same test, but just in a different lab, just to cross your T's and dot your I's, why wouldn't you do that? This is not only for people's lives and their families, but another person's life who's being tried for it and their family. Chain of custody is a huge deal, and apparently it's either been suppressed or it doesn't exist. Yep. Yes. Autism Lab. Yep. The Middlemans is their name. Yes, everybody go subscribe to Rolo's channel, please, and thank you. I'm going to check out that video, Rolo. Thank you. Where's Cyree? Yeah, I'm curious what Cyree has to say now, because he was so willing to put his entire career on the line to show proof that the phone pings and stuff didn't happen that way. I'm so curious about that. Lost in the fire. Yep. Well, that's really it. I didn't really have a whole lot for today. I was going to play this interview, and then I wanted to show you guys that document that just says that Dylan's phone will be forever sealed and we won't know what's in it. Sucks. I really, really wanted to see that. I wanted to see hers, and more so, I wanted to see Bethany's, because I want to know the exculpatory evidence that she had. Do you guys think that she saw somebody? And do you think she saw them in the front out her window, or do you think she saw them in the back? They got Brian's DNA from the trash pull at his parents' house. That's why they made up that bullcrap story about him separating his trash so people couldn't imagine that was What I think is crazy about that story about him separating his trash, I think it's possible just because he has autism and OCD so bad. I think that might just be a baseline normal for him. He might do that all the time. But what I find interesting about that is, if it was so important, why didn't you collect all that trash that he was separating? Because I don't think they did. And I've also heard that there is not any body cam or anything of arresting him. I don't know. We have so many questions. Does anybody... Oh, my other thing before I either start reading or hop off. If the Gonsalves family is so upset about this that they are cussing out every Tom, Dick, and Harry and the judge, why don't they make this huge complaint with the judge? Because under Idaho Constitution, the victims' families have rights. I'm curious if he is doing that, but if he doesn't, I'd be curious why. Why are the victims' families okay with this? Yeah, it seems like the Chapins just kind of want to move on with their life. They I think they cremated Ethan, and they said they have him in the basement so they can go talk to him whenever they want to. I think they more so just want to keep moving on with their life, which I think everybody's different. If that's what works for them, that's what works for them. I don't know. I could say the same thing. I would want to fight for at least answers, because I can't imagine they have many more answers other than maybe an autopsy result. Other than that, I don't know what could give them more answers because the prosecution didn't have a case. But it sounds like the Gonsalves family, you know, them speaking out has made a lot of people not care for them. And I don't mean to be mean. I just think a lot of people kind of try and steer away from Steve because he is so outspoken. If you notice in the Prime docuseries, the Gonsalves family is the only family that's not in it. I don't know if because they weren't asked to be in it, because they turned it down, or because the families aren't seeing eye to eye. I do remember hearing Steve G say something in an interview, in an interview one time that said, I'll let their family speak for them. Almost like he was called out, like, stop talking about our family. Stop talking about our child. Talk all you want about your own, but don't bring up ours. We're handling it differently. That's what it seemed like to me. Of all the families, I think the Chapins are the only ones that know the truth. And that could be so possible because they're the only ones who aren't really outspoken about anything. They're kind of like, yeah, you know, this happened and we're going to move on. And they also talk about that. They also talk about that 2 a.m. is the dark hour. Like, why would you say 2 a.m. if you know? But if you know, maybe that's why you're saying 2 a.m. Because all the commotion in that area was going on closer to like 2 and 3 rather than 4 and 4 something. Just from what I've seen so far. Well, I don't want to say so far, but just what I've seen in a lot of videos. I think that because no family shows this much disinterest if they don't know what happened. Right. And don't know what happened to a triplet. I would want to know. I think most people do want to know. Yes, we do still have a gag order. And I don't know if you were here at the very beginning, but I said, I let you guys know that they sealed Dylan's phone records. So we won't be seeing what's in them. That was as of yesterday, it was signed. I think the Gonsalves sister knows something because she's suddenly quiet. I haven't heard much from the sister lately. I think one small thing I saw, but I didn't even know it was her at first because her teeth are super duper duper white and it looked like she had lost a lot of weight. I know she was pregnant before, so that could be it, but she has gone very, very quiet. Yeah, I've seen one small thing, but I don't even know how long ago it was that she actually did the interview. Could be an older one. Yes, DM is getting ballsy. DM is saying, it specifically says invasion of her privacy. And that's why she doesn't want her phone records out there. Which, in a sense, I get. I don't know if I'd want my phone records out there either. But if it came down to it being my friends being unalived horrifically and putting my phone records out there to help people understand, or anybody else who might need it to understand, like the Chapins or, you know, whoever, whatever it is, I would be like, yeah, here's my phone records. Like, if I didn't have anything to hide, I'd put my phone records out there. Aren't her parents lawyers or her stepmom a lawyer? Dylan's? Wait, what does Dylan's dad do? Isn't he the district attorney somewhere in Kootenai County? Kootenai? Or is that, okay, yes. And Funk is something similar, right? But just in another county. What's his name? Cody Funk? He's something too. Like, they all have positions like that, like a state's attorney or involved with law enforcement, something like that. I would have checked on Xana. Dylan's dad is an active heroin addict. I have not ever heard that. I thought he was the district attorney. I think it's Maddie's dad who is on substances. The roomies didn't make a statement that day, but they were cleared. I think they were talked to, like they went to the police station, like followed them to the police station and had it wasn't even like an interrogation. It was just like talking, like, hey, tell me what happened, in the sense of looking at them as victims. That was it. No questions, no interrogations, no nothing. They were immediately cleared. Yep. The Funk family is not from Idaho. They're in Nevada, right? The Funk family. I get the dads confused as far as Dylan and Bethany's. Dylan's coming from the position of, I've been absolved by this plea agreement. Yes. I'm sure that when this plea came out, Dylan and Bethany were like, yes. Because we know Bethany was trying to get out of it like crazy. I want to know what she saw. What exculpatory evidence did she have? I want to know. Because I swear, I really don't think that when they lift the gag, there or unsealed documents, or let people look at the documents, I don't think that there's going to be much more than what we have already been given. I really don't. I think there's too much corruption. There's too much going on for them to let this stuff get out. If there's even anything in it, could be a whole bunch of nada. I think that's why SG is supporting Dylan. So I know that at some point SG was questioning the roommates, wasn't he? In the very beginning, was kind of questioning the roommates. And I do know at one point Dylan lied right to his face. She told him that she was sleeping the whole time and doesn't know. And now we know, baby girl, you weren't sleeping at all, ever. Rillo said, well, why would they interview them if the cops were involved? But people can't see that. I think the closest I've seen for that white car that they show on Dateline is the hybrid vehicle of the Banfield stop, the white hybrid vehicle that they pull up in and are driving. I think that's the, like, sound wise, looks wise, it looks, the car on the Dateline video where you can see it, and they claim it's Koberger's and the headlights are shining like right into the camera and it drives around and then it leaves again at 420. To me, that the closest resemblance of a car that we've seen is the cops undercover hybrid. What about all the stuff and connections Pav figured out? So all that intel just goes away for everyone, unless Ann and Brian, unless Brian gets a different attorney, if he can somehow find a way to make an appeal on a technicality, or maybe even on his autism, he can use that for an appeal. I know it says no appeals, but trust me, there's ways around it to have appeals, unless he will use that kind of stuff and be able to look into it. I'm sure all of it's been sent to, actually, I know for a fact it's been sent to Ann Taylor. So unless he can use that stuff when he's appealing, then I don't know. I guess so. Dylan begged Kaylee to come back as her +1. Did that happen? Well, she came back. I don't know if they went to that thing that Dylan was asking her to come back for. It was some like dance right? Some sort of dance. I didn't see any pictures of being at a dance together. The picture that we saw of that day, I think Kaylee was wearing jeans, or Dylan was wearing, one of them was wearing jeans. So I don't know if they actually went to the thing that Dylan drove all the way to Kaylee's house for, to ask her to be her +1, and then all the way back to college. And then Kaylee comes all the way there and then doesn't go to that thing. That sounds super sus. It always has. I also showed Hunter Johnson concealing a knife in his inner wrist at 12:27. That's what I want to know. So the police come in, and Hunter says himself, I walked into the kitchen at 1122 and I grabbed a knife. I was protecting these girls and blah, 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 blah. What happened to that knife? You can't tell me they go into Koberger's apartment and find nothing but take his steak knives, but you didn't take the knife that Hunter had, and you can't blame it on, well, because we knew it was a K-bar. You didn't know in that moment. Well, you knew that it was a K-bar when you went to Brian Koberger's house and took his steak knives, which makes no sense. Why would you do that? Brian Enton is super nosy. He does spill, I know he's more on the guilter side, but he does spill the beans sometimes. Hunter looked sick. Yeah, I wanted to talk about that. Hunter did look sick, and I don't mean to be mean about it, and I'm sure you don't either, like not in a mean way. It's just either he is sick, like he has something, or this has really taken a toll on him. It's very noticeable that he doesn't look well. Yeah, so many pictures of the kids with knives. Absolutely. The Sigma Chi kids take pictures all the time in masks with knives. And I thought there were issues with them at that time. Yeah. Hunter looked like it's either taken a toll or he has an illness. He said something too that didn't add up for me, or I thought was weird, and now I can't think of it at the moment. It might have been when he said he got up at 3 a.m. and locked the door, but they never locked the door. He just had a feeling. And I'm like, what's going on there? To where Xana has her dad coming to lock her doors, to where Hunter gets up in the middle of the night and locks the door he's never locked. Like something was going on to where these people in this group felt unsafe. That's part of what makes me think it was somebody that they knew. There was something going on between them and somebody else or something else, a different frat, whatever. Like something was going on that I think was unspoken or only known between them. Stress, drugs. Yeah, it could be anything. You want to see the autopsy pictures? I do too. And not to be like morbid about it. I want to see it because I think it tells a story. I think it gives away a storyline and evidence of stuff, and it would tell us more. There was even an axe throwing contest that night. And it's funny you say that because I heard somebody say one time, Dylan saying the guy looked like a fireman and then leaving with a container or a vacuum. And then somebody said, well, could the wounds be not from a K-bar, but from an axe? Because I think the coroner said it went through bone, which kind of made me go, interesting. Could it have been an axe? Or at least one person had an axe? I don't know, Rolo. I don't know how much I believe in the cannibalism conspiracy thing. What I do find suspicious still to this day is Jack John Rogers Showalter, allegedly, in my opinion. That's what I still find suspicious to this day. For some reason, I can't get him to get out of my brain with suspicion. Some people said there were pew-pew in the documentary. I did hear stuff in the very beginning about shot. Somebody told Kaylee's mom that she had been pew-pewed. FBI agent FBI agent said it takes immense strength to kill a human by knife. It does. Do you know how close and intimate you have to be with somebody? That's very close. And it takes so much out of you, out of your muscles, out of your body. I mean, I think it said Kaylee was, I don't know what word I can use. Kaylee was stabbed 50 times on top of the fight and her being punched and all that trauma to her face and her head. I mean, can you, like, that movement 50 times just for one person? Oh my gosh. You can probably get a good 5 out of me, and then my arm feels like it's going to fall off. I mean, that's a lot. It really is. A knife doesn't require strength. I think it's not the knife so much that requires strength. It's the repetitiveness of it. I mean, your arm would get tired, I would think. And then you're fighting, and then you're stabbing again. And then, I feel like that your arm would be tired. 50 times. Yeah, very personal. Very, very personal. Somebody who just moved to this town, 6 months prior, has never gotten closer than a football field lengths away. Actually, a little bit longer than a football field in distance away, has never gotten closer than that to the house. You would never be able to get enough intel on that house. And if you did have intel on that house, then why would you go in there not knowing the layout? But now you've got, 3 different cars that are not usually there in the parking lot. Let's say you did have intel on the house and you've seen what cars are outside and what time people go to bed and what time the lights get shut off. Well, now you've got 3 different cars in the parking lot that are not usually there. And you decide to go in there in a home you've never been in the dark, by yourself, with that many people in there. Stop it. Nika said, I think it's Emma Bailey, was on the wrestling team and is super cut. Makes me think twice, especially if Maddie was the target. I mean, it's personal. I wouldn't doubt that a female could be involved. Just the fact that it was Kaylee and Maddie to begin with, I feel like one of them was the target. And I feel like they would be target from either like a breakup or jealousy or something like that. Like a female could be very jealous of her, especially if a female knew that now she came back to town and has a brand new Range Rover. Could you imagine if you were a jealous female and then you saw that of the person you were jealous with? It could have been like, oh, I've had enough of this girl. State champion Saeed was all-state champion wrestler, yeah. I feel like it would have to be somebody that had more like of a wrestling style of, you know, like how they exercise, stamina. That's what I'm thinking of. That kind of stamina where, you know, like a UFC or a wrestler type of stamina, not so much. I don't know. Because I also heard that some of the wounds were very like strategic in where they were. But with that many wounds, I mean, you would get them anywhere. But I did hear that some of the wounds were very like somebody knew what they were doing and where to cut and how to cut. Like maybe a military like medic type thing or something. Did Maddie flush something important? I'm not sure. I know that that was going around for a while that Maddie had flushed something. I don't know how much I believe that, because there was also a video of somebody putting something in Maddie's mouth at the grub truck, and that was actually debunked. That's not true. It was somebody handing their ticket over, but it looked like it was just like the right angle in the video. But did anybody see on the grub truck video, did Kaylee and Maddie kiss? Did anybody else see that? It was when I think Kaylee was showing Maddie something on her phone or something. Yeah, okay. I want to make sure that I wasn't crazy. I thought I saw Kaylee and Maddie kiss at one point. It's so very, very short, and I think it's when Kaylee was showing Maddie something on her phone. She like walked up. It looked like she kissed her. I don't know. It could just be the angle, but it looked like they kissed at one point. And then I heard, you know, that they were in the same bed and it was a small bed. Their phones went off at the exact same time. Like, I don't want to spread rumors or anything, but I have always wondered if they actually were more than just friends, which is fine. It's not that big of a deal. What about the guy at the grub truck that showed his hands as if to say going to sleep? I don't think I remember that. I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm just saying I don't remember it. It makes me want to watch it again. James says the girls knew, put it up here, the girls knew where they were, the times of arrival and departure as to time being home. A couple sets of eyes on them. That's very true. If you guys think about it, Bethany had eyes on Ethan and Xana pretty much the whole night. And Dylan had eyes on Kaylee and Maddie, at least when they came home. And she was eavesdropping on their conversation when they were talking on the couch, and she didn't join in. She was just listening. Why was there such a need to personally go get Kaylee and bring her back and then deceased after bringing her back? I think a lot of people find that part strange because they weren't that close, were they? They weren't like super duper close friends. So why would Dylan drive all the way to Kaylee's family's house to beg her to come back and then not even do what you said you wanted to do, why you wanted Kaylee to come back? I am curious, not to be a hater or anything. I'm just curious, how did Kaylee afford a brand new Range or I know it was used, but it's still new. Like, it's not that old. How did she afford a brand new Range Rover as a college student that worked at best part-time? I know people said she had a job offer that she signed to be in IT, but when you buy a car like that, you have to have a couple months of proof of income, bank statements, and nobody's going to sell you a car for you to say, yeah, I'm going to start a job later. I found that weird. Like, how would she afford a Range Rover? That she was working for Olivia. What? I think I saw that video, Rolo. Yep, I think it's when like you scroll in real deep and you can see a black cloak looking thing. I believe she did have a few bank accounts. I believe they all did. Because in the documents, there are so many bank accounts, and those are just the ones that like they knew of. Who knows accounts that they didn't know of? And you know what's always bothered me, and I want to know this answer. And the thing is it could be nothing, but the Venmos, the $6 Venmos. Why? Was it like, you can see the picture, but you have to show me, or you have to send me $6? Yep, you can see it, but you got to send me $6. I don't know. I mean, I think they tried to cover it up, wiping up footprints and stuff. But to me, that just says there's a cleanup. So for the police to not do anything about that shows either they're in, like, there's something going on. They were watching it go down. I mean, they had to know. They had to see. They had to hear. They had to know. There's just no way around it. They said, I mean, okay, so they want to say this blood is dripping out of the house. So it's a terribly constructed house already. I heard that the walls were paper thin as well. So you can't tell me that nothing was heard. And then not only that, it's literally above Dylan's head that this fight is going on. Person walks up there. You're going to be able to hear somebody walking across the floor. I don't care what anybody says. You're going to be able to hear somebody walking across the floor up there and fighting and two people being unalived. You're going to hear that above you. Does anybody know if any part of the house was carpeted? Was the upstairs carpeted? I always thought that the whole house was just hardwood floor. So if it's all hardwood floor, then absolutely. Hello, Sandra. Yeah, I've never seen blood come out of a house like that. I mean, if they poured water on their floor, filled their room up with an inch full of water, it's not going to seep out. Why would blood seep out like that? I've never seen that before. I know Miss Potts said before that, hi, love Tina. Miss Potts said before that it could have been a pipe burst. That could possibly be why HVAC was there, that a pipe would burst from having the doors open all night and it being so cold, and then the pipe burst, and then it comes out this like coppery, weirdish, reddish color. It could be that too. It could not be blood. I have a workable theory. If that is blood on the outside of the house, go for it. Yes. Nobody's getting whacked right above you without a peep. Absurd. That's putting it mildly. Case is wilder than a soap opera on steroids. Couldn't have said it better. Oh, there's a letter saying there was wallboard and floorboard removed during the incident of the homicides, like during the cleanup, not during the investigation. Ted says it's definitely blood. I just don't understand how it can. I mean, it looks like blood. And like I said the other day, to me, it looks like it was done with like an eyedropper. So the public could have a visual of this magnitude of a crime happening, because we never had a visual of any body coming out of that house. Not necessarily that they would show it, but they would definitely put blinders up so the public couldn't see bodies coming out of the house. And we never saw blinders up either. And by that time, it would have been later in the evening. By that time, there was news stations and cameras everywhere. We would have seen at least blinders go up. So to me, that was our visual of, yes, this crime happened in this house. See, there's blood outside the wall. I mean, outside the house. Oops. Yeah. So Denise says, Fry said the heat wasn't working, so maybe the pipes did bust. And Miss Potts actually said that before as well. So that's possible too. It could go either way. Wouldn't it look more brown than red? That's what I would think. Press is awful. They don't care. I don't know if you guys, any of you watch, I'm sure some of you watched at least the Prime docuseries stuff, and how the media went to Maddie Mogen's mom's house like right after she found out, and as she's getting out of her car, these press people get out of their car and just start running up to her up the street. How terrifying. Your daughter was just murdered, and now you have strangers that you don't know in street clothes getting out of a car that you don't know running up to you while you're getting out of your car. How terrifying. Like, people need to think before they do things. Okay, who else remembers this? I remember seeing a picture where blood was on top of the kitchen cabinets. I remember this as well. I remember seeing blood dripping down the kitchen cabinet. Am I crazy? Does anybody else remember that? That's what I think should have happened. Not to be an asshole, but if you have obvious signs of a cleanup, roommates that say they were sleeping and then come to find out they weren't, they need to have a real good, uncomfortable interrogation. That's what I think too. Yep. I think a lot of people feel that way too. Yeah, exactly. Good point, Susan. How terrifying was it for the SWAT team to bust into Brian's family's house and zip tie all of them? I'm sure it was terrifying. I know that mainstream media likes to say, Brian called his parents at 6 a.m. Okay, yeah, but it wasn't 6 a.m. at his parents' house. It was 8 a.m. And they're older people. I'm sure they're up drinking coffee by that time. Not really that big of a deal, but they seem to think that that was a call from Brian, like telling them that he just murdered a bunch of people. Like, I'm sure that didn't happen. I'm sure he did not call them and say that. I'm sure that conversation was nothing but a regular conversation that they probably always have. Just somebody to talk to. He was bored. I don't know. He's been up all night. He couldn't sleep. He has insomnia. If it were blood, it would be a messy drip, not a dainty doodle. Think splatter. That's what I was saying the other night when we were talking about this too, is if it could somehow come out of the house, I don't think it would come out looking like that. It wouldn't just be like a drip. I just feel like that looks not natural. Yes, Dylan and Bethany did call their parents that morning too. The thing with theirs was they were both specifically calling their fathers. They specifically at 6 in the morning and 7 in the morning were trying very, very hard to get a hold of their fathers. The only time you call your father like that at 6 or 7 in the morning on a Sunday is if you are in trouble. Like you need him to help with something. It could very well be, I'm scared, come here, I guess. I don't know why, but probably not, because then why would you wait until noon to call a friend over? They were calling their fathers for help. And one of those fathers is an attorney, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, who was moving the dog? I know a lot of people think that he wasn't there, that Jack had him. It could be. It could be that Jack had him, and that's why there was no blood. Very well could be. They do say that Maddie was unalived first. Sally asked, was Maddie unalived first? That's what everybody seems to say. I don't know. I once heard a rumor that the bodies were put in running hot water to wash off DNAs that could explain the rust coming off the water pipe. Ew. Oops, sorry guys. I thought they found Murphy upstairs. The police found well, that's what they say. They say that Murphy was just laying in Kaylee's bed. It's hard for me to believe because at some point Murphy would have needed to go outside. If you think about it, Kaylee was there. They went out at like 9 at night or 10 at night or something to the corner club. They were out all night. Then they come home and then let Dylan tell it. They talked and then went to sleep. That she didn't say, oh, they let, Murphy had to go outside. So Kaylee let Murphy, none of that. So it's like Murphy wasn't let out for like 24 hours, 16 hours. No. Yeah, no blood on Murphy. Jack couldn't have had him. I know some people think that he might have. He lived right next door, basically, like a hop, skip, and a jump away. So people think that Jack brought him there at some point in the morning. Yeah, the door open and Murphy just stayed in the room. I always thought, and that's because I have a dog, if somebody was unaliving me, let's just say, my dog, at the very, very, first of all, my dog would eat their face off. But if at the very, very least, he would think that we were playing and would want to play. There's no way all that commotion with his owner and he didn't even go check it out. At the very least, the dog would think that they were playing and would want to play, especially from being home by himself the entire night. Isn't there a video of DM carrying Murphy around at 6 a.m.? There was a video of somebody pointing out that it looked like somebody was carrying a dog. I do remember that. I don't know what came of it, if it was actually a dog or not, but I do remember seeing that. Yeah, there you go. I do remember seeing that. Dogs go ballistic. Yeah. I know that her dog wasn't like a guard dog, but it's just a dog's nature, no matter what breed it is. Animals sense trauma. Yes, they do. The whole Murphy thing is really strange. I think that the house was a party house, and I think that Murphy was used to it. I don't think that he would necessarily go crazy over this whole situation happening, but I do think that he would check on his owner, or think that they were playing when the fight was going down or the unaliving was going down. I think at the very least he would think that they were playing, because I know that they were loud and there's a lot of people in and out. I don't necessarily think he would bark at an intruder just because there were so many random people in and out of this party house, but he would have blood on him. There is no way. You can't tell me he wouldn't go check on his owner during a fight. That's literally across the hallway that's this big. Yeah, they will check on you eventually. Absolutely. And especially if he hasn't been outside in how long? At some point. And I heard somebody say, well, no, because the blood was just on the bed. Not possible. I got in a bad ATV accident one time, and I had one really deep cut in the middle of my arm. And every time my heart would beat, it would spray about 4 to 5 feet across the hospital room as I was waiting for staples. Yeah, it sprays when you hit an artery. And I'm sure many were hit on each person. So it's spraying everywhere, not to be gross or gruesome about it. It's just a reality. It was all over. That blood was all over, not just from cast off from the knife. Yes, I agree. The entire narrative makes no sense because it's made up. The truth should always flow with minimal questions. I think that's true. The truth should just flow, and the timelines should just add up, and none of them do. I don't even think the state can tell us what time this occurred. Taking the white car out of it. If the white car wasn't there, they wouldn't have a clue what time this occurred. Not a clue. The coroner says sometime after 2 in the morning after that. You should be able to tell as a coroner when somebody close, very, very close, like narrow it down. Yeah. That Murphy sat in the room with the door open. I could understand if the door was shut. Yeah. I always wondered about those cowboys. What were they looking for? What were they there for? Yeah, I want to know about those cowboys. Because wasn't it Pav that showed a video of those same exact people sitting in a van doing surveillance in that area? Yeah, super sloppy. Cowboys were marshals. Yeah, but like, what were they doing? But the autopsy should have told them a pretty good timeline because of food that absolutely. Yeah. And they would tell us exactly the order as well, because, you know, victim 4 would have the blood transferred from the other 3. Victim 3 would have the blood transferred from the other 2, you know, and so on. You know, the first victim wouldn't have anybody's transferred onto them. 48 times Kaylee was. Yeah. I usually say 50 because I think I heard that somewhere, but that's pretty much the same thing. 48 and 50, that's a lot for one person. I feel like that would take a decent amount of time. So I heard each person had several like that, like a lot, like 48, 50. Except for maybe Ethan, I think it was like his legs and then just not just, but, you know, a neck. That's a lot of work, I feel like. A fight, chasing Xana, all while carrying around a container, a knife, and a garbage bag with a mask on, telling people that it's okay, I'm going to help you, sitting down in a chair. Like, you can't even speak out the scenario in 4 minutes, let alone it happening in 4 minutes. Pretty much the only reason Moscow exists is the university. Absolutely. That town would have nothing and be able to afford nothing and nada without that university. It brings in so much money. Oh, it would be the end of Moscow if something happened to that university. And I think the whole surrounding area, because you got to think, you know, the college kids and stuff and families coming there, they're eating, you know, 20 minutes away here because it's a good restaurant, and shopping 30 minutes away here. It would take down that whole area within like a 50-mile radius, if not more. How long did he sit in the chair? I don't know. I want to say Ashley Banfield said that, and it was like 30 seconds or a minute, and she said he did it because he was exhausted. I mean, we don't know that. We don't know. It could have been Xana maybe falling into the chair, or the other intruder, another intruder waiting on the other one to finish in this room. You know what I mean? Like, it. I don't know. I found that odd. I can't see somebody who's going in there completely blind, not knowing the layout of the house or the people in it or how many is in there, what they're doing, what they have, if they have a gun or not. And then doing that, knowing there's other live people in there, because mind you, he heard her yell to be quiet. So he knows that there's other people in there, or he or she, whoever the perp is, and then is going to sit in Xana's room in a chair because they're exhausted and just sit there. No, somebody who's never been there, especially in a house that's in the middle of town. Maybe if you did this in a house out in the country where you had time to get away, you had time before the police came there after they're called. But sitting in a chair in a house in the middle of town that you've never been in and you've never scoped out and you've never gotten intel on, nah, you're going to want to be in and out as fast as you can. If DoorDash was there, the perp would think someone was up. Right. It just doesn't make sense. You have nobody who is going in to commit a crime like this is going to go in right after they see, because remember, DoorDash said she saw him, which means he saw her. And nobody's going to be like, oh, they just got food. Let me go in here and unalive them real quick. No. Wait, he went for Maddie first and then lost the sheath under Xana, and little to no DNA on the sheath. So he came out of Maddie's room clean. So what they've said is he went in for Maddie, lost the sheath next to Maddie while fighting with Kaylee in the same bed. And then apparently they're trying to say Xana heard it, came up the stairs part way. He stopped what he was doing, went to chase Xana, but cut her in the hallway, like in the stairwell on the stairs, because they're trying to say that Xana's BLOOD is in the stairwell, and then they're trying to say she ran into her bedroom and he caught her there in the doorway, and then it was finished. And then he sat down. And $50 million annually is gifted to the university. They got to cover that up. They got to cover this up. They can't lose that funding from every which way they get it. I remember Mabbott saying it was one of the worst crime scenes she's seen. Yep. I remember her saying that too. I always found something off with her interview, though. Especially the fact that on her autopsy report, the cause of death and the manner of death are flip-flopped. She has them on there wrong. And if somebody's doing that for 16 years, I would think that they'd at least get that right of anything. It's the main parts of it. I'm wondering if they're saying that the crime was committed with a K-bar just because the sheath was there. I don't know. All right, guys, we are almost 2 hours in. I did not mean to go this long. I apologize. I'm going to actually hop off for a minute. I got to take Bronx on his nightly walk, and then I'm just going to film reading the book. I'm going to read a couple chapters, and then I'll just post it right away. So it should be up in about an hour or so. Or I'll just get back on live and just read it if we want to do that. But either way, you'll have some chapters tonight to read or listen to me read. If anybody wants to read it when I'm done, I will be more than happy to send it to you too, so you don't have to buy it. Times is tough, y'all. Okay, thank you guys for being here. I really appreciate it so much. I hate to just leave you guys like that, but Bronx has the potty, and he's all I got, and I'm all he's got. Okay, you guys, thank you for being here. I really, really appreciate it. I'll go ahead and figure out this book thing, if I'm going to read it or jump back on or not. Other than that, I hope you guys have a fantastic night. And let's go support some other creators too and jump in on their lives. Bye, Christina. Bye, Mariska. Bye, Tonka. Bianca, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you. I hope you know that. How do you pronounce your name? Is it Shanti? Shanti? I'm bad with pronunciations of names. Bye, Susan. Bye, Vivian. Just Joy. Bye, Rolo. Big Mike. Offset Guitar. Okay, guys. Do something nice for yourself. Be kind, but more importantly, be kind to your dog or your cat or your flying squirrel or whatever you have. Good night.